Hi, my name is Kerry Critchlow from RCR Recording Studios, and today we're going to be talking about channel strips. Now, this is not a video to show that one is better than another, or that you must use this type of channel strip over this channel strip. We're just going to go over the basic functionality so that you can kind of understand what's going on, right? And so we have a drum track here, and we'll just pull up an SSL E channel strip here. Okay, and this may look complicated and convoluted, but it's actually pretty simple once you start to kind of dive into it, right? And so what you have are, well, I guess the advantages of having a channel strip is that you have a lot of things right in one kind of GUI, if you will, like in one screen, as opposed to having to stack an EQ and then a compressor and then a distortion and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You kind of have it all in one screen here, one plugin, right? And so a lot of channel strips are going to emulate consoles, like classic consoles that you might see in like bigger studios. Like for instance, this is modeling the SSL E console, right? Then you have the G console and stuff like that for SSL. You also have like API consoles or Neve consoles, and then some are just kind of have like basic. They're not emulating a console per se, but they're going to have all of the same kind of things at your fingertips, right? They'll have like the EQ section, the filter section, the compressor, or like the dynamic section with your compressors and gates or expanders, etc. And so you kind of have it all in one place, right? And so if we were to solo out our kick here and play it, well, we can come in here and we can start to mess about and change how this kick sounds with our EQ and how loud it sounds with our compressor. And we can even add a little bit of dirt and grit with some mic pre's, which are adding gain and distortion to the sound that we're working on. And then you can go through and you can change how the routing works as well if you want to do. So you can have go from EQ into your filters into your dynamic section, or you can have your dynamic section be first. This is personal preference, but it does make a difference where your how your signal flow is operating, whether you're doing EQ filters into dynamics. And it's going to make an impact on how everything sounds, right? But we can kind of briefly sort of run through what this is doing. We have a filter section up here, which is basically just going to be a low and a high pass. Or, here's the low pass, here's the high pass. And it allows you to filter out, the lows and the highs of a sound. So if we've got our kick here. Well, this is going to take away all the highs. And this is going to take away all the lows. Okay? And that's what the filter section is doing. They're just pass filters that are getting rid of the lows and highs, right? Then we have our EQ section, and we have 4 bands here of parametric EQ, and we can have the top and bottom be either a bell or a shelf. It defaults as shelf, and if you click the bell, then it turns into a bell shape. And then in this particular plugin, you can choose between how this low frequency band works right here with these 2 buttons. You have the black, you have the brown, and then you have the light brown. And each of them is going to have like a slightly different EQ curve. And you have 3 options there. You have your middle section, which is kind of like your faders, and like your preamps. And so you have, say, like your mic gain here. And the more you turn that up, the more distorted it's going to be. And then you can play with the phase here if you want as well. And you have your trim. And then over here, we have our dynamic section. So we have our compressor and we have our ratio that we can set. We have our threshold, which we can then, bring down our signals to set our threshold. So when the compression's happening, the ratio is how much compression is happening. And then we can choose between a fast attack or a slow attack. And then here's our release. And so we can use our compressor here to control how the dynamics section of like our kick or whatever. And then we have here a gate, or we can turn it into an expander if we want. And this is going to just kind of either a gate. Well, gate will mute any signal that is not above the threshold. An expander will just turn down the volume in anything that's not above a certain threshold. And so that's what this is doing, right? It's just giving you filters, EQ, preamps, and a dynamic section all in one go, right? And then you have other things like here's another SSL, but this is modeled after the G series instead of the E series. And as you can see, it's very similar, right? We have our filter section, we have our EQ section, we have our preamp section, faders, etc., pan, and then we have our dynamic section. And it's going to give a slightly different sort of vibe, right? Because the EQs are a little bit different. In this case, instead of having like the bell or whatever, like the choice between a shelf or a bell, I think these are just automatically bells, and then you can use these to kind of change the tonality. But it's very similar, right? These are both modeled after an SSL. But we also have stuff like, for instance, this right here. This is modeled after an Abbey Road console from way back in the day, like the 50s or 60s. And it's going to have a kind of a... It's functionally doing it's the same thing, right? You can choose what, your input here, right? And this is left and right channels. So this is like designed for like a stereo kind of thing. You can choose your routing. You have an EQ. And then you have dynamics over here. And so right here, they have, I think you can move this around, or, oh no, here, for your routing, you can choose whether you want it to be EQ into your presence, into your dynamics, or what you want, like the routing you want, right? And so you can use this switch here to choose what is going first, second, and third. And this is going to have, you can turn on the compressor and you can put it into a limiter mode if you want. And then you have your kind of your threshold and your release, and the attack is kind of what it is. This one allows you to also have a mix knob, so you can kind of control how much of the compression you want to hear. And then you have your kind of like your preamp section over here, your fader section, right? And so it's going to operate very similar to the SSL console, except it's going to have a different flavor. The EQs are going to be different, with different curves and different, presences and stuff like that. The compression is going to be different, right? And so, like I said, this is not to say that this is better or worse or whatever than the SSL console, but like to show you how all these things work, right? And so if we were to start to use this, right? Like right away, just having it on, just turning this compressor on is already starting to kind of like make some difference right here. And so you're getting some stuff. You can also, add some distortion to it. Right. And so this is all kind of like just giving you a lot of stuff all in one sort of thing. Now, you can also have things that are designed specifically for a certain instrument. So, for instance, we have this kind of thing here, where this is specifically made for drums. And so if we look here, we have bass drum, toms, overhead, snare, hi-hat, whatever. Then we have an EQ over here, which is treble and bass. And then we have a compressor and a gate. And this is all kind of, and then you have, your effects. And so this is all designed to kind of be a one-stop shop here for like processing drums specifically. You have no control over the attack or release settings of your compressor. It's literally just you turn the knob until it sounds the way you want it to sound, right? All the options are kind of already there for you, right? Like I said, you just kind of turn the knob until it sounds good to you, until you're getting the sound that you want. And these are specifically programmed to like kind of be for drums, right? You have stuff that's programmed specifically for vocal chains or stuff for basses or what have you, right? And then you have this is also a drum specific thing. It's just going to have way more options here. And this looks pretty daunting when you first kind of glance at it, but it's really the same thing, right? So you have your expander or gate section here, which, like I said, just is automatically muting or turning down the sound when it doesn't reach a certain threshold. You have your compressor setting here, or section here, and you can kind of play with the attack and releases of your in ratio, and so you have a little bit more control over here. This is not modeled after a console, as far as I'm aware. Maybe it is, but it's kind of just designed to. Well, I guess it's modeled after the 32C channel. By Harrison. You have your filter section with your low pass and high pass. This one can actually be pretty aggressive because you, compared to the SSL, for instance, you can go 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, and same with the high pass filter. And then you can choose how steep your curve is with that. You also have kind of a mini EQ section over here as well, or an extra EQ section, if you will. That is kind of designed to EQ the initial impact and then the tail, so you can kind of like almost like a transient shaper to a degree. So you can kind of use this as a transient shaper. And then you can add, this one actually has a signal generator added in as well. So you can add in different sounds if you want. It's like they have kick or snare. Like for a kick, I think it's a sine wave, and for a snare, I think it's just white noise. But it allows you to add in an extra noise or an extra sound on top of your drums to kind of layer it a little bit, right? Yeah. So anyways, all of these plugins are kind of doing the same thing, more or less. They're just going to have like different flavors or whatever. But this is what plugins are doing, right? Or like these plugins are designed to do, is to give you access to a lot of tools in one window, right? As opposed to having to go through and pick out this EQ and this compressor and this, the distortion or gain or whatever you want to call it. And so it's just kind of designed to have it all in one window for you. And you can kind of go through, look online and find out which channel strips might be best for you. There's a lot of great videos out there kind of explaining why you might choose one over another, or when to use one over another. But the operation of all of them is more or less the same. They're all, some are going to have a few extra options, some a little bit less, but generally speaking, a channel strip is going to contain an EQ section, a filter section, a compressor or like a dynamic section, and then often like a gain kind of section. And then some might offer some other things, like some might have some built-in reverbs or delays or things like that. And so you can kind of play around and figure out which, you like or which you don't like or what you want to, use or not use. But it's, they can all be very useful in their own way. Like here's another one that's kind of specifically tailored for drums. And so, you can see we've got our low frequency, high frequency. These are the, our EQ section that you can, turn on and off. You have a gate section here. You have a, compressor setting here. And then you have a transient shaper here, right? And so you can kind of use these tools, and then you can play with the routing down here if you want to put one first or second or however you want to do it, however you want to route this. So like I said, this is more just kind of a basic tutorial on how you can go about using some of these, channel strips. And so we'll maybe do a quick demonstration, right? So if we got a kick here, maybe we want to add a little bit of top end to it. Perhaps a little bit of the mid-range frequencies. Maybe we want to take out a bit of the mid-range or the lower mid-range, tighten it up. And then maybe we want to add a bit of bottom to it. And then maybe we want to compress it, and we'll keep it as a slow attack. And then we're getting a little bit of gain reduction there. Lower the release some. And then if we wanted to, we could maybe start gating it a little bit. Get rid of the tail a little bit or something like whatever. And then we can maybe even add some grit to it with our pre. And then if we wanted to change the the actual routing, like right now we're going EQ into the filters, into the dynamics. Well, we're not using the filters, but if we were to say put the EQ after our compressor and gate and all that kind of stuff, it's going to have a different sound. Right? But that's kind of what is going on, right, with the channel strip, right? And like I said, they're all going to kind of more or less operate the same way. They're all designed to sort of give you the same tools, and it's just a matter of learning what the tools are. Like once you know EQ, you can use any of these channel strips to use the EQ and set it how you want. Once you learn compression, you can start to figure out where the compression is on your channel strips and dial it in the way you kind of want to dial it in. And it's just a nice and quick tool in order to do like the vast majority of the work on whatever track you're doing, processing, in this case, the kick track. It just allows you to quickly process a kick and get like most of the tools you need right there up front. And it can be a little bit easier than, like I said, picking out a specific EQ and then going through and picking out a specific compressor and then going through and picking out like saturation or whatever it is you want to add, your transient shapers and things like that. And so channel strips can be a very, very useful tool. Highly recommend you look into using them. That's not to say that you have to use a channel strip. Like I said, if you like, there are times where, hey, I really want to use this type of EQ along with this type of compressor and kind of mix and match what you want, right? And there are some channel strips, like for instance, the Steven Slate Virtual Mix Rack will kind of allow you to do this a little bit to a degree, this mix and match, right? And so if you kind of scroll through, they have all sorts of different things that you can use, right? So like we can come down here and we can use different preamps. Like for instance, we have these different preamps here that we can use. We can choose whichever one we want, or, if you want to combine all of them, you can. You can change the order around pretty easily. You can get rid of stuff if you don't want it. You can throw in your gate and you can route it. Like I said, the routing is very simple. You just kind of move it to where you want it in the chain. And then maybe we want to use this Neve style EQ, and we want to use a distressor type of compression. Well, now we have everything we want in one kind of window here, and we can start to kind of dial in whatever sound we want, right? There's a lot of different options here. You can, here's more preve, here's like a Neve type of preve. And then you have, an LA2A type of thing, a few 1176s to choose from. As far as compressors, you have transient shapers. You have some like pretty interesting, specialized compressors here that are going to, be maybe a little bit more aggressive. Anyways, so like there are different ways that you can put together your channel strips, or you can, like I said, go through and individually just pick out what type of EQ you want, go through, pick out what kind of compressor you want, do your signal chain the same way. But a channel strip can be a quick and easy way to kind of get a lot of things right at your fingertips in one window. So anyways, I hope this has been helpful. I may do a deeper dive on some of these channel strips in the future, but kind of today we just wanted to discuss what they are, generally how they work, the fact that once you know how to use one, it becomes pretty easy to figure out how to use any of them because they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're just going to have kind of different vibes, different flavors as far as like the sounds and what they're kind of offering. But, they're, like I said, they're all going to probably have a filter section, EQ section, dynamic section, and like a preamp section. And then some are going to maybe have a little bit extra. Some are designed for very specific instruments. Some are designed to be more universal or like designed after like a specific console or things like that. And so you can kind of look into what type of channel strips would be best for the project that you are going to be working on. So anyways, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.